We're back on Morning Trade Live. The weight loss drug trade has been a good one over the last 2 months. After dipping in early August due to subpar earnings, both Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk have moved higher to the tune of more than 30% from those lows. The companies have been battling in the injectable weight loss drug market over the last few years, and oral versions of the drugs are expected to hit the market before the end of the year. So let's go inside out on the weight loss drug trade. Joining us now, I'm very pleased to say, is Lee Brown, Global Sector Lead, Third Bridge. Just wondering, as we look at Eli Lilly's performance, what do you make of that off the back of those lows, as we mentioned? Quite a big run-up, no doubt, on some of these developments. Do you think it can continue?
I think so. I mean, look, the number of folks in the U.S. who are either overweight or obese is around 100 million. And so the experts we're talking to are discussing significant price discounts to where the injectables are currently marketed. You can get Mounjaro for weight loss through Lilly Direct at $495 for a month, right? We're hearing that these drugs might come in well below that range. And I think as investors assess this market opportunity, think about that. Every additional 1% penetration into that's a million new customers. And if you're going to price this, say, in the 200 to 300 million dollar range, that's 200 to 300 million per month of incremental revenue. So you can easily get well beyond 10 billion in annual sales as this new oral market matures over the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay, and we continue to see this sort of weight loss showdown continuing between names like Eli and also Novo. I'm just wondering if you look at sort of the advantages that both have and how we're looking at, continuous rounds of, competition playing out in this space, whether you see the market fit for two winners, or do you think one is positioned better than the other?
Well, on the heels of the Attain-1 data, and I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but obviously the market thought Novo Nordisk oral semaglutide was in the lead. The market's quickly recovered in terms of how Lilly's traded and with that evolved sentiment. I think what that suggests is folks are really looking at the dietary restrictions with oral semaglutide. In fact, a specialist I spoke with just last week was heavily weighting market leadership towards Lilly's orforglipron. I'm not sure I'm as optimistic as him, but I do think it's at least going to be an exciting race. And to my earlier point, I think there's enough of a market opportunity with this sort of volume for price game, which is a very compelling strategy for both to have very strong revenue and earnings growth engines over the next five plus years.
Mm-hmm. Big announcement last week between the Trump administration and Pfizer, catching a lot of attention and really help lifting all healthcare stocks. I mean, we did see a nice rally in some of these names as well. He did hint that, more could be coming down the pike. I'm just wondering, as you look at some of these names, and particularly Eli Lilly having some of that manufacturing here domestically, which company here is better positioned, or at least how would Eli Lilly set to benefit from, potential partnerships and announcements like we heard from Trump and Pfizer last week?
Yeah, well, there's two things going on at play with your inquiry. One is sort of the tariff policy, which is moving on manufacturing back into the U.S. I think that is a huge lever that pharmaceutical companies have in working with the Trump administration. The other topic that you're bringing up is this, what they call the MFN-EO, which stands for the Most Favored Nation executive order. And what they're trying to do is lower U.S. drug pricing to the lowest price in sort of these selected countries that they're OECD countries with a per capita GDP at sort of 60% of the U.S. The issue with what we've seen is these companies, Bristol Myers did it for Cobenfy, Lilly did it for Mounjaro. They're actually just raising the prices overseas to press the U.S. market. And what you saw with Pfizer was sort of a one-off negotiated deal to take a target off of them and put it on the other manufacturers. The issue with this is not what the MFN-EO's intent is. But what I do think the industry is going to do is continue to negotiate these wins. The Trump administration can then have that narrative as a political victory. But ultimately, this isn't about full transparency of what their drug pricing is. The risk is the administration changes its mind in terms of how it's playing, and that this remains a longer-term overhang during the administration.
Okay, important perspective. Thank you so much for your time today, Lee Brown. We've got to wrap it up there. That is Lee Brown from Global Sector Lead, Third Bridge. Appreciate it. Let's trade it now with Tom White, host of Fast Market. And you've got an example trade for us on Eli Lilly. Tom, good morning to you.
Yeah, it's stocks rallied about 11% back so far this month. They report earnings on the 30th of October. So I looked at an option strategy. This is a high-price stock, right? So maybe using the option market for leverage is the best way to look at this. So I want to avoid that earnings event. So I went out to the October 24th weekly options here. So you've got about 18 days to expiration. We're just going to sell a neutral to bullish out of the money put vertical. That gives you a better probability of success. So in that October 24th option series, we're going to sell the 820 strike put. And then against it, we're going to buy the 800 strike put. So a short $20 wide neutral to bullish put vertical. You're going to collect roughly about a $5.80 credit on that. So that's what you can make, $580 with about $1,420 in risk. But it takes your break even all the way down to $814.20 to the downside. That's about 4.5% below the current share price. So you've got that nice cushion. The probability that that short 820 strike will be out of the money at expiration, which is what you want, that's about 66% probability on that. So a high probability trade on this short put vertical.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for that, Tom. And that's going to do it for us here on Morning Trade Live. Thank you so much for joining us.